The clock above the dispatch window read 1 minute to 9 when Adele Winters stopped reading names off the route sheet and picked up a different piece of paper. The depot floor went quiet the way a room does when it senses weather coming. 60 drivers in brown jackets stood between the coffee urn and the loading doors, and every one of them knew whose name was on that page before she said it. Gabriel Sutton. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. 8 minutes late on the 4th, 8 minutes late on the 11th, 8 minutes on the 18th, 8 on the 25th. 4 times a month, every month this year, like an appointment. She lowered the paper and found him in the crowd. This company is fighting for its life. We are done carrying passengers. Behind her right shoulder stood Bram Hollis, regional director, holding the personnel file he had built himself. He kept his face respectful. It took effort. Gabe Sutton looked at the clock instead of at her. He was 39 years old, and he had spent 12 of those years driving for this building without a single accident, and he said nothing at all. He walked to the keyboard, unclipped his ring, and hung it on the hook with his route number under it. The hook squeaked. It was the loudest thing in the room. Yolanda Price leaned out of the dispatch window with her mouth already open, and Gabe shook his head at her once, small. He picked up his thermos and walked the length of the floor, past 60 people who would not look at him and could not look away, and out into the cold April sunlight. He could have said one sentence and kept his job. He had spent 4 months making sure nobody heard it. Before you go any further, guess whose headlights find her on a dead highway at midnight? Some answers you will not see coming. 4 months earlier, in January, the alarm in the little house on Delmar Street went off at 5:50, same as always. Gabe was up before it finished. That was a habit grief had built, and routine had finished. He started the oatmeal, set out 2 bowls, and put Finn's spelling list next to the spoon where it could not be avoided. On the flour jar by the stove, in fading marker, a woman's handwriting still said, "bread money," and he had never once wiped it off. Finn came down at 6:15 with his hair doing something science could not explain. He was 8 years old, 9 in June, and he read the world the way his mother used to, sideways and all at once. "Dad," he said, watching Gabe warm up the pickup through the window, "you talk to the truck more than you talk to people." "The truck listens better," Gabe said. "Eat." The bus took Finn at 10 after 7, and by then, Gabe had usually been to the depot lot once already in his mind. His route was the county loop, 41 stops, grocery stores, and school kitchens, and one nursing home that always needed the milk brought in the side door. His temperature logs were so clean that Yolanda photocopied them for new hires. 12 years, 0 accidents, 0 write-ups. Until January, the man had never been late a day in his working life. The other drivers had a name for him, and the name was the highest compliment a loading dock gives. Ask Sutton. The reefer unit throwing a code nobody recognized. Ask Sutton. The dock plate jammed at the worst store on the loop. Ask Sutton. He will be there in the morning anyway. Yolanda Price, who had run dispatch for 20 years and could smell trouble through a phone line, kept his cell number written on the wall under the word plumber, which was her private joke, because whenever something in the operation sprang a leak, that was the number that fixed it. He never charged anybody for any of it. He would just wave his hand and say the sentence that drove Yolanda quietly crazy. "No trouble, I was passing anyway." He was always passing anyway. That was the whole secret of the man, and nobody thought to write it in a file. It is worth knowing what kind of man he was before anyone in a suit decided what kind of man he was. He had learned engines at 18, at a truck stop garage off the interstate, where the teacher was breakdowns and the tuition was skin knuckles. He met May when he was 25. She was an emergency room nurse with a laugh that arrived before she did, and on their third date she pulled over on a 2-lane in the rain because a stranger's sedan sat dead on the shoulder with its flashers going. Gabe had said what everyone says: somebody else will stop. May was already out of the car. She leaned back in, rain on her face, and said the sentence that would run their whole family like a small, quiet engine. Nobody's stranded on purpose, Gabe. We stop. They married when he was 29. Finn came a year later. And when Finn was 4, May got sick in the fast, unfair way that gives a family one autumn to say everything it meant to say over a lifetime. She died in November. Gabe did not fall apart because falling apart was a luxury item, and he had a 4-year-old. Grief did not make him softer or harder. It made him exact. Exact was something he could give the boy. Breakfast at 6, bus at 7:10, clock in at 8. A man can pour a lot of love into a schedule if the schedule is all that is holding the floor up. For 4 years, that was the shape of it. Then came January, and Ernest Vale. Ernest had trained Gabe on the county loop back when Gabe was 27 and green. 31 years that man drove for Callaway Foods, and he knew every frost heave in the county by its first name. He retired at the end of July with a sheet cake and a plaque, and the company shuttle used to take him and a dozen other retirees to town twice a week, to the bank and the pharmacy and the doctor. Then his Dora died, and his hands started their tremble, and the state took his license, which was right, and the company took the shuttle, which was cheaper. In January, on a morning 11 degrees and mean, Gabe drove past the Vale place and saw the old man standing at the end of his driveway in his good coat, holding a folder of paperwork, waiting on a rideshare that had canceled twice. Gabe pulled in. Of course he pulled in. The rule was the rule. "Kidneys," Ernest said in the warm cab, embarrassed, holding the folder like a kid with a bad report card. "Tuesdays and Fridays now. They run my blood through a machine and hand it back." His right hand kept its small argument with the air. 31 years I drove for them, Gabe. Now I can't drive myself to the thing that keeps me alive. The dialysis center was in town. Intake at 7:40 sharp. It was 18 minutes from the center to the depot gate. On a good morning, Ernest walked himself in, and Gabe clocked in at 8 with 2 minutes to spare. On a tremor morning, when the intake forms needed a steadier hand than the patient owned, the drop-off ran 10 minutes long, and Gabe's card slid into the clock at exactly 8 minutes past. Not 7, not 9. 8, with the regularity of a man who had done the math and knew precisely what mercy cost. He never told a soul at the depot. That was Ernest's one condition, and pride was the last property the old man still held clear title to. "You don't say my name in that building," Ernest said. "I gave them 31 years standing up. I won't be anybody's sad story." "Then you're my mechanic," Gabe said. Nobody asked questions about a man visiting his mechanic. So 4 mornings a month, sometimes 5, the best driver in the building was 8 minutes late, and he let it stand unexplained. In February, a supervisor mentioned it. In March, the world changed shape. The company had been bleeding for 2 years, and in March, the board sent in a new chief executive to stop the bleeding. Adele Winters was 44. sharp as a new blade, and carried a reputation for saving companies other people had given up on. What the reputation did not say was that she read every file herself and slept about 5 hours a night doing it. Conrad Dunbar, the board chair, gave her one instruction: make this place run like it means it. She was not cruel. She was in a hurry, which can look the same from below. Bram Hollis met her hurry at the door with dashboards. Hollis had been passed over twice for the job she got, and he had learned that the next best thing to power is being the man who feeds it numbers. His new punctuality report ranked every driver in the region. The dashboard had a column for minutes. It did not have a column for why. The same week that report went live, something else happened, quietly in a hallway. A refrigeration unit on Trailer 19 had wobbled out of range for 40 minutes on a February run, and the load had gone to a school district. The right move was to log the deviation and eat the loss. Hollis brought the log sheet to Gabe with a pen already uncapped. "Within range," he said. "You were there. Initial it and we all go home." Gabe looked at the sheet for a long moment. "Kids ate off that trailer," he said. "I'll sign what the gauge said." He was polite about it, and he was a wall about it, and Hollis smiled and said it was fine. Absolutely fine. 1 week later, Gabe Sutton's name sat at the top of the exceptions report on the new chief executive's desk, with 4 months of 8-minute mornings highlighted in red, and nothing else. No 12 years, no 0 accidents, just the minutes. The first written warning came in late March. Yolanda pulled him into the dispatch office and shut the door with her elbow. "Tell them," she said. "Gabe, one sentence. You're driving Ernest Vale to dialysis because this company cut the shuttle out from under its own retirees. That sentence gets you a medal, not a warning." "I gave Ernest my word," Gabe said. "A warning I can live with." "Can you live with 2? I guess we'll find out." What Gabe never knew was that Yolanda went into the system that night and added a note to his file anyway, worded careful as a prayer. "Personal caregiving, mornings, verified by dispatch." It sat there for 6 days. Then Bram Hollis, doing what he called hygiene on the personnel records, deleted it. The system kept a log of the deletion, the way systems do, patient and unblinking, waiting for somebody to ask. The final warning came in April on a Tuesday, in a beige conference room with a supervisor who could not meet his eyes. The man read the language off the form because the words were not his. "Any further attendance violations will result in termination of employment. Sign here to acknowledge." Gabe read it through once, twice, and picked up the pen. "For what it's worth," the supervisor said quietly, "nobody in this building understands it. You could set a watch by you for 12 years. If there's something going on, Gabe, anything, this is the moment to say so." "I appreciate that," Gabe said, and signed his name in the box, careful and legible, the way he signed temperature logs. It was the most honest signature in the file. He sat in the truck in the depot lot afterward and did the arithmetic of a smaller life. Rent, summer camp deposit, the brake job the pickup had been asking for since Christmas. Groceries had a number. The electric had a number. The boys' school shoes had a number. And he moved them around the columns like freight, looking for a configuration that held. He was quiet so long that the windows fogged. That Thursday night, Ernest tried to fire himself. He had heard something in Gabe's voice and pried the rest out of him, and now he sat at his kitchen table with his checkbook out and his jaw set, writing numbers his pension could not cash. "There's a van service," Ernest said. "Costs an arm." "I've got a spare arm." His hand shook and the pen line wandered, and he pressed his other hand down on top of it, furious at his own wiring. "You're going to lose that job over an old man." "Then it was never much of a job," Gabe said. He rinsed the coffee cups, and on his way out, he took the gas money Ernest had hidden in his jacket pocket and left it under the sugar bowl, where they both pretended not to see it. This was a ritual by now. The sugar bowl was getting rich. At home, he stood a while in Finn's doorway, watching the boy sleep with one arm flung out like he was signaling a turn. He knew what Friday might cost. He had known for a month. Some men budget money. He budgeted consequences, and he had decided he could afford this one, because the alternative was becoming a man his son's mother would not have stopped for. Friday morning was a tremor morning. The forms took 12 minutes. Ernest apologized for his own hands the whole time, and Gabe filled in the boxes in block letters and said, "Your signature still looks better than mine." He got the old man checked in, got him settled in the recliner with the tube in his arm and the television remote in reach, and drove 18 minutes to work doing no math at all. He already knew the answer. His card hit the clock at 8 minutes past 8. The following Monday, at 1 minute to 9, Adele Winters picked up a piece of paper, and you know that part already. Here is the part you do not know. The firing took 90 seconds, and the drive home took the rest of the morning, because Gabe went the long way, past the county loop he was no longer paid to care about, and found that he still cared about it, which annoyed him. He did not tell Finn that night. He sat through spelling practice and grilled cheese and a long story about a kid named Marcus who had allegedly eaten a crayon, and he decided the boy could have one more normal week before the worry moved in. Then he sat up at the kitchen table with the classifieds and a pencil, under May's handwriting on the flour jar, and made a short list of places that might want a 40-year-old with perfect logs and a stubborn streak. That same evening, 40 miles north, Adele Winters was at a lakeside lodge where Conrad Dunbar liked to hold his board retreats, presenting a slide that said, "Discipline is a kindness." The board liked the slide. Boards generally do. She left at 11 alone in the German sedan the company leased for her, and took the 2-lane because the interstate ramp was closed for repaving. The battery light had flickered at her twice that week. She had noticed it the way busy people notice things, which is to say she had scheduled it for a future that did not arrive in time. The 2-lane at night is a different country. She had forgotten that. The way people forget who spend their lives between an airport and a parking garage. No streetlights, no shoulder to speak of, just her headlights pushing a little room through the dark, and the rain arriving all at once, the way spring storms do in that county, like a decision. 11:40 at night, on Route 9, between a dark farm and a darker one, the dashboard lit up like a slot machine, and the power steering went heavy, and she got the car onto the shoulder as the engine died. Rain was coming down in ropes. Her phone said 2%, and then, having said it, went black. The hazards blinked, and each blink seemed a little dimmer, and she sat in the ticking dark learning the difference between being in charge and being fine. She counted cars the way you count things at midnight to stay calm. A pickup went by without slowing. A semi went by, and its wake shoved her car sideways like a big hand. A sedan slowed, thought better of it, and was gone. By the 40th set of taillights, she had stopped rehearsing what she would say to whoever stopped, because the evidence suggested nobody was going to. The 41st vehicle was an old pickup that was doing nothing special until it passed her. And then its brake lights came on, bright and red in the rain, and it eased onto the shoulder 50 feet ahead and backed up along the rumble strip, careful and sure, like a man backing a trailer into a tight dock. The door opened. A flashlight came toward her through the weather, held low, the way you hold it when you are trying not to blind a stranger. She rolled the window down 2 inches. She recognized the truck before she recognized the man. Then the light caught his face, and her stomach did something complicated. "You're the man from this morning," she said. "Yes, ma'am," Gabe said, rain running off the bill of his cap. "Pop the hood for me." If he was angry, it did not reach his hands. He worked the way she imagined surgeons worked, no wasted motion, narrating just enough to keep the patient calm. The serpentine belt had shredded, he told her, which meant the alternator had stopped charging miles ago, which meant the car had been running down its battery like a held breath until there was no breath left. He could not conjure a belt for a German sedan on a county shoulder at midnight. What he could do was clamp his jumper cables across, let his old truck pour charge into her battery for 20 minutes, and buy her enough electricity to make town if she kept the lights low and did not touch the blower. She sat where he told her to sit, in her own passenger seat with his dry jacket over her shoulders, because hers was silk and his was flannel, and he had done the math on that too. Rain drummed the hood he was bent under. Twice a car blew past and drenched the backs of his legs, and he did not appear to notice. "Why did you stop?" she asked, when he came around to check the gauge. He seemed surprised by the question. "You were stranded. 40 people decided that was not their problem. I only count the ones who stop," he said, and went back under the hood. At 12:20 in the morning, the sedan came back to life, weakly, like a patient sitting up. He followed her the whole 22 miles into town, his headlights steady on her bumper the entire way. And when the battery sagged on the last hill and her dash dimmed, those headlights moved up close and stayed, as if the old truck could hold the sedan on the road by looking at it. He guided her to the lot of an all-night diner, 2 blocks from a garage he knew, went inside and came out with a promise from a night waitress and a phone call already made. Dave would tow it at 7. Dave owed him one. Dave apparently had also once been stranded. She tried to give him money in the last 30 seconds because it was the only language she was fluent in at that hour. $200 folded lengthwise the way people fold money when they know it is about to be refused. He was already closing his door. Through the open window he said, "You'd have done the same," and pulled out of the lot and was gone before she could tell him the truth, which was that she was not sure. She stood under the diner awning with a dead phone and a borrowed jacket and 11 words she could not put down. The best man she had met all year was the one she had fired that morning, and he knew who she was when he stopped, and he stopped anyway, and he would not take her money, and he had left before she could even ask his son's name. She did not know yet that there was a son, but you already understand that everything in this story runs through that boy. She did not sleep much. In the morning, she skipped 2 meetings, closed her office door, and pulled the file on Gabriel Sutton herself. All of it, not the summary. It took 11 minutes to see the shape of what Hollis had handed her. 12 years, 0 accidents, 0 write-ups before this year. Temperature logs so consistent that an auditor had once flagged them for being too clean, then apologized. And then 4 months of 8-minute mornings, 4 times a month, precise as a metronome, explained by nothing. Precision like that is not carelessness. Carelessness scatters. This clustered. A pattern that tight is not a man who oversleeps. It is a man who is somewhere, every time, on purpose. She called up the file's revision history because she read everything, and that is where she found the ghost. A note, added in late March by Y. Price, dispatch, personal caregiving, mornings, verified, deleted 6 days later. The deletion log gave the username plainly, the way systems do, patient and unblinking. B. Hollis. She sat with that for a while. Outside her window, the depot went about its morning, 60 brown jackets, and the smell of diesel. A whole world she had been sent to save and had mostly seen as a spreadsheet with weather. She did not summon Hollis. Not yet. On Friday, she left her house at 7 in the morning, drove to the North County in her repaired sedan with its new belt, and parked across the street from the dialysis center with a coffee she did not drink. At 7:38, the old pickup turned in. She watched a man she had fired come around to the passenger side and open the door, and she watched an old man climb down out of it in stages, one hand gripping the frame, the other hand shaking in a way that had a diagnosis in it. She watched Gabe take that shaking arm and set it through his own, unhurried, like they had all morning, like the clipboard under his other elbow weighed nothing. The old man said something. Gabe laughed. The door slid open and took them both in, and the street was quiet except for the rain gutter emptying itself. She recognized the old man. That was the part that finished her. She had seen his face 8 weeks earlier, in a stack of legacy expenses Hollis had walked her through, line by line, recommending cuts. The retiree shuttle. Photo of the last Writers Club at somebody's 90th birthday. She had signed that cut in her second week between 2 meetings, and Hollis had called it low-hanging fruit. And the fruit had been Ernest Vale's ride to the machine that kept him alive. Gabe came back out at 7:51 alone and stood a moment in the rain by his truck, looking at nothing, the way tired men do. Then he got in and drove away, in no direction that mattered anymore, because there was no clock waiting for him. She sat in her car a long time after he left. The note said, personal caregiving, verified. The dashboard had a column for minutes. She had built her whole career on reading every file, and she had fired a man off a summary. Monday morning at 9:01, the depot floor was full, because word had gone around that the chief executive had called another all-hands, and everybody assumed somebody else was about to be read a lateness record. Adele Winters stood where she had stood 2 weeks before, same spot on the concrete, and she did not have a route sheet. She had a single piece of paper, and next to her stood nobody at all, because she had not told Hollis this meeting was happening, which was itself a kind of memo. 2 weeks ago I stood here and read you 4 dates, she said. Today I'm going to read you the rest of the file. She read it all, plainly, without theater, which somehow was the theater. The 12 years, the 0 accidents, the refrigeration deviation on trailer 19 that a certain regional director had asked a certain driver to initial as within range, and the driver's refusal, 1 week before that driver's name surfaced at the top of a punctuality report. The shuttle this company took away from its own retirees to save the cost of one executive retreat. The old man on Maple Route who gave Callaway 31 years and needed a ride to dialysis twice a week. And the driver who gave him one every Tuesday and every Friday at 7:40 in the morning and clocked in 8 minutes late with his mouth shut because he had given his word. The note in the file that said so. The name in the deletion log. The floor was so quiet, the ice machine sounded rude. "I fired the best man in this building for the best thing about him," she said. "That is mine to carry, and I am not going to hand it to a policy or a dashboard or a bad week. I read a summary when I should have read a man." She folded the paper. "Mr. Sutton is coming back, on his terms, and his terms are better than mine. And the next time any one of you is 8 minutes late because you stopped for somebody, I want to hear about it, loudly. That is the kind of company that deserves saving." Nobody clapped because drivers do not clap at 9 in the morning. What they did was straighten 60 people at once, a whole room quietly standing a little taller inside their own jackets, which if you have ever worked a floor like that, you know is louder. Bram Hollis heard about the meeting the way he had arranged for other people to hear about things, secondhand, after it mattered. When he arrived at the executive floor, there was a single sheet of paper waiting in the middle of his desk. It was a printout of a deletion log. There was no note attached because none was needed. The compliance review took 9 days, and it found the trailer 19 paperwork too, buried 2 folders deep, exactly where a careful man puts a thing he believes no one will ever be angry enough to look for. He resigned on a Thursday before lunch, and the building noticed mostly by feeling lighter. Nobody chased him into the parking lot. Nobody had to. Some men are their own consequence, and the kindest thing a story can do is let them drive off inside it. Gabe got the phone call on a Tuesday from Yolanda, who was crying and pretending to have a cold. He came in Wednesday, and Adele Winters met him on the floor, not in her office, and apologized in front of the same clock she had fired him under. It was a real apology, the unarmored kind, no clauses in it. Then she slid a piece of paper across the dispatch counter, and this one had his name on it too. But the words around it were different. Same route, his route, plus a new title she had invented after reading his logs, Cold Chain Steward, which meant that the next time anyone asked a driver to initial a lie, the driver had somewhere to take it, a raise that respected the 12 years, and one line, typed at the bottom, that he read 3 times. Schedule accommodates Tuesday and Friday mornings. Standing. No explanation required. "I have a condition," Gabe said. "Of course you do. The shuttle comes back. Not for me. There's a dozen retirees out there who gave this place 30 years apiece, and they can't get to town, and we own vans." "It came back this morning," she said. "Check the lot." It was parked between the box trucks like it had always been there. A white 15-passenger van with new lettering on the side, green as a July field. The Vale line. Underneath, smaller. Riders first, minutes second. They unveiled it for Ernest that Friday after dialysis, the whole morning shift finding reasons to be near the fence. Ernest stood in front of his own name with his cap in his 2 unreliable hands, and for a long moment the man who would not be anybody's sad story could not locate a single word. 31 years, he finally managed, and the thing with my name on it is the thing that stops. "Seemed right," Gabe said. "It seems," Ernest said, and stopped and started again, quieter. "Your May would have liked this one, son." Later, on Ernest's porch, with the van gone home and the evening coming down easy, the old man tried once more to apologize for the job, for the weeks of it, for the arithmetic he had watched his ride do in silence every Tuesday and Friday. Gabe let him get exactly 1 sentence in. "You taught me the county," Gabe said. "Every heave, every soft shoulder, every dock." The way I figure it, I've been paying off a ride the whole time. Mine just came first. Ernest looked out at the yard a while. His hand trembled on the armrest, and he let it. 31 years, I thought the best thing I did for that company was the driving, he said. Turns out it was you. That night, over grilled cheese, Gabe told Finn the whole thing, start to finish, including the week his father had been fired and had sat right there, letting him talk about a kid eating a crayon like the world was normal. He had decided the boy was owed the truth of it, all of it, the warnings and the sugar bowl and the storm. Finn worked through it with his chin in his hand, a small judge weighing a case. So Mom's rule got you fired, he said, for a while. And then it got you unfired. That it did. Rules like that run long, Gabe said, and Finn nodded like a man agreeing to terms, and asked if Ernest could come to his birthday, and whether the van could bring him, since it had his name on it anyway. The van did. It arrived in June with one passenger and one enormous wrapped fishing rod, and the sugar bowl money, every crumpled bill of it, finally got spent the way money should be, on a cabin weekend where 3 generations of nobody related to each other by blood caught 11 fish and admitted to 9. Life at the depot found its new shape. The exceptions report still existed, but it had grown a second column, and the second column had a heading Adele had typed herself and dared anyone to laugh at. Reason, if any. It turned out there was usually a reason. It turned out the reasons were the best reading in the building. And on Fridays, the chief executive rode the county loop. She called it auditing the route. She kept a clipboard on her knees the first week and gave it up by the third. She learned where the frost heaves were, learned the nursing home liked its milk through the side door, learned that grocery managers tell a driver things they will never tell a suit, and learned that the man beside her drank his coffee black and drove with 2 fingers resting on the wheel at the bottom, calm as a lake, before anyone is awake. She started bringing 2 cups. He started, without comment, timing the run so the good bakery had the seeded loaves in when they passed. Why Fridays? She asked him once. Somewhere between stop 19 and stop 20. The fields going by green and the radio down low. Fridays I stop at the good bakery, Gabe said. Audit that. It was not a courtship, or if it was, neither of them filed the paperwork. It was 2 coffees and a cup holder and shop talk that kept running past shop. It was her, learning to be off duty in the passenger seat of a delivery truck, which no boardroom had ever once taught her. It was him, catching himself looking forward to a day of the week for the first time in 5 years and deciding, carefully, not to be afraid of it. Finn met her at the depot family picnic in June and interviewed her for 20 minutes about whether the German sedan had survived, and rendered his verdict to his father that night at the sink. She counts the ones who stopped too, Dad. Whatever that meant, it meant something. The rain came back through in the middle of June, one of those warm evening storms that rinse the dust off a county and leave. The Vale line hummed past the depot gate at dusk with its riders and its slow wipers, and out on the shoulder of the state road, a college kid stood beside a steaming hatchback, phone dead, thumb out, learning at 19 what the chief executive had learned at 44. An old pickup passed him, and then its brake lights came on, bright in the rain. Gabe backed down the rumble strip, easy and sure, and Finn, 9 years old now, and tall enough to be useful, handed his father the flashlight without being asked, the way an altar boy hands over the candle. They walked up through the weather together, the man holding the light low so it would not blind anybody. The boy carrying the little toolbox that had been his birthday request, to the bafflement of every adult but two. 40 cars went past her that night in April, and she stopped counting the day she met the one that did not. The man was never really late. All those mornings, all those 8 minutes, he was exactly on time for the thing that mattered, and the clock at the depot was simply measuring the wrong things. None of them had been looking for any of this. Not the driver, not the old man, not the woman with the dead battery and the full title. They had only been stopping. It turns out that is how the best things arrive. They do not knock. They just pull over, somewhere out on Route 9, and leave their hazards blinking slow in the rain. Warm, unafraid, and the door opens and a voice you do not know yet says, "Pop the hood." And after that, nothing in the story is stranded anymore.